Apocalypse Now is a 1979 psychological war film that was directed and produced by Francis Ford Coppola. The movie stars Marlon Brando, Robert Duvall, Martin Sheen, Frederick Forrest, Albert Hall, Sam Bottoms, Lawrence Fishburne, and Dennis Hopper. Coppola and John Milius wrote the screenplay, which is loosely based on a book called The Heart of Darkness, with the setting being changed to the Vietnam War. The movie follows a river journey in South Vietnam into Cambodia that's undertaken by Captain Benjamin Willard, played by Martin Sheen, who is on a secret mission to assassinate Colonel Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando, who is a renegade Army Special Forces officer accused of murder and who is presumed insane. The screenwriter John Milius credits his obsession with war from never getting to fight in one. Milius attempted to volunteer for the U.S. Marine Corps to fight in Vietnam in 1968, but they wouldn't take him because he had asthma. Instead, he decided to go to USC and enroll in their film program there, where he met fellow classmate and Star Wars creator George Lucas. During a lecture there, a professor named Erwin Blacker convinced the class that no screenwriter had ever perfected a film adaptation of Joseph Conrad's novel, Heart of Darkness. This caused the filmmaker, who was already focused on the Vietnam War, to turn his attention to Blacker's challenge. He combined the Vietnam War with the book, and that's what eventually led to Apocalypse Now. Francis Ford Coppola's production company was given the development deal from Warner Brothers to produce new films from new scripts. Out of all the new scripts he had looked at, he liked the script of Apocalypse Now more than others. After years of developing the project, the plan was to have George Lucas shoot the movie on 16mm black and white film in Stockton, California, on a very shoestring budget with a very pseudo-documentary style. The project just languished in development for years, and Lucas eventually dropped out to direct the little script that he had written. That movie was called Star Wars. Following the successes of The Godfather Part 2, and The Conversation, Francis Ford Coppola agreed to direct this movie. The early title for the film was The Psychedelic Soldier, but it was soon changed to the moniker that it is today. Milius got the label for the film by putting a spin on Nirvana Now, a slogan that was used by California hippies, which meant to get high and reach a state of pure consciousness. The actual title is never mentioned in the movie, but you can see graffiti covering a stone wall that says our motto, Apocalypse Now. This was all added by Coppola because the title and the copyright legally had to appear somewhere in the movie. The director shot an unprecedented 1.5 million feet of film for this movie, and he came upon the opening shot by sheer accident during post-production. Coppola asked editor Richard Marx about reels of footage that were in the garbage. Marx replied to him that it was just static footage from an unused angle from one of 6 cameras that was used to shoot the napalm scene. After looking at it, the director liked the eerie geometry of the trees and the helicopters whizzing by, and he went on to tell the editor to cut it together with the song from The Doors called The End, because he thought that it would be humorous to start the movie with The End. Coppola held exhaustive auditions for his primary cast members, but the part of Willard proved to be really problematic for the director. He first offered the part to Steve McQueen, who turned down the role because he just didn't want to shoot in the jungle on location. Al Pacino, James Caan, and Jack Nicholson all turned down the role too. He then gave the role to Harvey Keitel, who he went on to fire 6 weeks into the production because he thought that the actor's performance wasn't what was needed for this character. He at the time knew of Martin Sheen because he had auditioned for the role of Michael Corleone in The Godfather. After meeting with the director, Martin Sheen took the role. The plan was to have a 14-week shoot for the movie in the Philippines in the spring of 1976, which was on schedule until a typhoon ruined nearly all the sets and equipment, forcing the production to be shut down for 8 weeks. The project went on with reckless abandon thereafter, and principal photography didn't conclude until May of 1977. Post-production for the film lasted for another 2 years before the movie was finally released in August of 1979. The screenwriter wanted to shoot the film on location in Vietnam. Coppola rejected this idea and eventually shot the movie on location in the Philippines because President Ferdinand Marcos had agreed to lend the production as many helicopters and gunships as it needed. In the early development of this film, while the war was still going on, the U.S. Department of Defense denied the film any assistance due to its anti-Vietnam message. Marlon Brando, who previously won an Oscar playing Vito Corleone in The Godfather, showed up on location in the Philippines weighing over 300 pounds. All of his costumes had to be scrapped because the director expected the actor to show up fit like a Green Beret soldier. This forced Coppola to have to come up with a way to shoot around Brando's weight. He and the cinematographer decided to shoot him in shadows and in silhouettes to make his character seem more mysterious and to not show his weight gain. Now, if you notice, this film is a strange one. It doesn't have any credits at all in it. The original presentation of the movie came with a specially made program that included a list of the cast and crew that would stand in for the credits. But then later on, the studio forced him to create a credit sequence to tack on to subsequent showings of the movie. Now, there are some scenes in this film that are just very disturbing. The first one that comes about is called the canteen scene with Colonel Kilgore and a wounded Viet Cong. And it's based on an actual event that happened to one of their fighters, who continued to still fight while his entrails were hanging out of his stomach. He strapped on an enamel cooking pot and continued to fight the war. This incident was documented by a photojournalist on location. And the dialogue that occurs in the movie and in real life was that the soldier said to the VC, "Any soldier who can fight for 3 days with his insides hanging out can drink out of my canteen anytime." In the early scene where Captain Willard, played by Martin Sheen, is alone in his hotel room, that shot was completely unscripted. Martin Sheen told the camera crew to just let the cameras roll. Sheen was really drunk. Some say he had been drunk for 3 days. He punched the mirror, which was real glass, slicing his thumb open. Sheen also began sobbing and tried to attack the director. The crew was so disturbed that they wanted to stop shooting. But Sheen got crazier and crazier and wanted to keep the cameras going. At this time, he was fighting a drinking problem and issues of his own. He got so caught up in the scene and his own inner struggles that he hit the mirror, not even thinking about what he was doing. He believed that continuing on with the scene would help him face his problems. As you look back and watch this film again, take a look at the way his face appears on camera. You can see the puffiness in his eyes, and you can tell that he's been crying and drinking for quite a while. This is a pretty intense movie, and some scenes are really hard to watch. I think that the water buffalo scene is probably one of the most disturbing scenes that I've ever seen in a film. This poor water buffalo is slaughtered with a machete, and this is an actual ritual that you see performed by a local tribe. Coppola had previously witnessed this with his wife Eleanor and decided to put this in the film. This wasn't special effects. Although it was an American production, subject to American animal cruelty laws, such scenes filmed in the Philippines were not policed or monitored at all. The American Humane Association gave this film an unacceptable rating. And you have to understand why. This is one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen. And I see a lot of movies. The movie was released August 15th, 1979. You got to realize it's a pretty long one, but it's well worth the time spent watching it. Take another look at it, or if you haven't seen it before, take the time to watch it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.